All right. Well, we're really excited to be here, especially to talk about developers, although we promise we will probably mention and talk about AI as well, so it'll be on par with all the other sessions that are going on. I'm Ben Fletcher. I'm a partner at Accel, and I'm really pleased to have three amazing founders and CEOs of Accel-backed companies that focus on developer experience and selling to developers. So I'll let the three of them introduce themselves, tell a little bit about their companies, and then we'll jump right in. Bernadette, if you want to start.
Cheers, Ben. Yes, Algolia, we're a search and discovery platform, and we have over 17,000 customers on the platform today doing about 1.75 trillion searches, so second only to Google as far as we know.
Milin Desai, I'm with Sentry. We help developers find issues in their software, broken, slow, whatever it is in real time. And that means happier developers, higher quality code, and happier customers.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shensi, co-founder of Merge. We're a Series B startup that offers APIs that allow developers to integrate once to offer full category of integrations to their customers. We currently cover HRIS, ATS, accounting, CRM, ticketing, file storage, and marketing automation.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the three of you being here. We're going to start by talking a little bit about the developer experience as well as building a company around developers. So maybe I'll start with Shensi. As you all have built the company, what did you do early on to make sure that you were focused specifically on developers and building a great experience for them?
So I studied computer science in undergrad, but I actually hadn't worked as a software engineer in my professional life. And I actually got back into software engineering for Merge. I had to relearn how to code. I didn't understand how anything worked, and my co-founder really invested a lot in me so that I could be able to help build the product, build the integrations, and really understand the developer pain as they were going through the same exact problems that we were going through with our own product. And I think it helps a lot with just really understanding the true pains, being able to talk to customers, being able to actually sell the product, and also just knowing the product inside and out. I think there's no better onboarding than really understanding the code base and also being able to address all parts of the repository. I think that was the main thing that we did, and also investing a lot in quality.
I love that. Bernadette, you have been the CEO of many companies, Alfresco and SDL, that were focused not on the developer experience or on developers. How has it been different for the last 3 years as you've been the CEO of Algolia and come in with such a vibrant developer community, building the company focused on developers?
Sure, well, I think the engine is different. It kind of goes without saying, but what does that really mean? So, for example, when you're launching new products, you'll do it in different forums. You'll do it on Hacker News and Product Hunt and in subreddits, versus coming out with a white paper with Forrester or a Gartner, for example. But I also think that, and we were talking about it earlier backstage, that when you cross the chasm in your sector, that also introduces additional nuances. So the developers that were really happy to figure things out, that were the innovators and the early adopters, they'll persevere with things. Whereas when you get up to the enterprise, they don't want to persevere with it necessarily. They want a partner that can help them and hold their hand. But I also don't think it's either or these days. I think the best companies have both. You've got the bottoms up with the developer, you've got the tops down with the other members of the decision-making unit, and they come together and the developers validate what some of the higher-ups are looking for. At least that's the case in our market, and I think some others.
It's really interesting. What we've seen for some of the best companies that we've been able to partner and work with, the Slacks, the Atlassians, the Webflows, they have such a vibrant community. And being able to then layer on enterprise sales or enterprise contracts, it's an art to be able to do that. Milin, you all have done an incredible job at Sentry for cultivating your community. But walk us through some of the trade-offs and some of the things that you've done where developing and building that community base and then layering on enterprise sales on top of that.
Yeah, I think when you think about building a community, it starts with like a very simple thing, which is your product accessible to the community? And so open source or being open source definitely helps in that, but there are other ways to do it, like a community edition or having a very generous free tier. So like that's step number one. Number two is very often you get caught up in your own hype. I want to build a community for my users versus participating in large communities that already exist. And so at Sentry, while we think about like our users, we are catching our users in the communities that already exist, whether it's the latest Next.js community that's out there, or GitHub or Atlassian that you mentioned.
Yep.
So don't be caught in this idea that you need to build a community. You can actually latch on to existing communities and participate in that. The third piece of building a successful community is being authentic. And so show up, not only take from the community, which happens a lot, you need to give back. Give back in time, give back in contribution. So especially as you think about like the open source community or building in the open, make sure you give time and in a lot of cases dollars to the community maintainers, to the foundations, because that's how you build these vibrant communities, and that's how there's a give and take relationship, and that's something we found a balance in, which is we give back both in time and contributions, but also in dollars in that. So that's kind of the bottoms-up motion. Yeah. You get that going, the developers talk to each other, and then the top-down motion kind of naturally comes along because more teams use it, you need an enterprise contract. That's how you kind of bring in the top-down part of it. But for us, being part of that vibrant developer ecosystem is where we've made a mark. And these are some of the key elements you need to think through as you kind of progress building a company or participating in the community.
Love that, love that. Shensi, maybe for you all, early days, you built an incredible product, but then the next step of selling that product in the go-to-market is not always easy. Figuring out how do I sell to developers. Maybe walk us through your journey and some of the things that you all did to go from building a kick-ass product to now being able to sell that.
Yeah, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. We actually hired an intern to do outbounding as me, and it almost killed us. We had 120 meetings that summer, and Gil and I closed and took the first meeting for all of those meetings. It was really, really, really busy, but I think it was really good for us to personally experience what worked and what didn't work. We experimented with a lot of different pricing. We tried transaction-based. We tried flat rate. There's so many different things that we tried, and we also learned a lot about objection handling. Like, what did we need to build? What was missing? What were people really concerned about? And so by the time we hired our first sales team member, he was able to get like tons of notes from what we had seen. We even had Gong at that point. So he was able to look at videos. But honestly, I think like technical founders and companies that are for developer tools, you have to learn to sell. Because even if you have the best product and you don't know how to sell it, it doesn't mean anything. And the best product doesn't always win.
That's really, really, really important. You mentioned pricing and packaging. And it's, I would say at Accel, we're constantly asked by our portfolio, Series A, Series B, Series C, need help with this. And a lot of companies think that, the public companies have it figured out. But what we found is pricing and packaging is always evolving, always going to be changing, and always improving. Bernadette, maybe for you all, what have you seen, especially for having a bottoms-up PLG motion and then an enterprise top-down? How do you get the two to mesh with pricing and packaging?
Well, I think, first of all, you've got to recognize that pricing is part of your product.
Yep.
And so in order for you to be nimble and be able to do that kind of experimentation that Shensi was talking about, you've got to have a billing system or a usage and billing system and team that enables you to do that. And that was kind of a sore topic when I entered the company because we had a brittle billing system. We didn't have a dedicated team, and we were in the process of implementing an off-the-shelf third-party product, which we ended up walking away from because it wasn't going to give us the flexibility. So I think viewing it as part of your product and part of your development process is absolutely critical. And then I think keep it simple. Make sure you're charging for what delivers the value to your customer. Because if you don't get that right, all the rest of it is academic. And then I came from the open source world, so I believe in differentiation of the packages as you traverse that spectrum from the PLG, a build or a free plan, which should be definitely very generous, all the way up to the enterprise. You need product differentiation, and that can't just be on price.
I love the point around value. So important, and that has to come first and foremost before you even have the pricing and packaging discussion. A lot of building for developers, the focus is around satisfaction, around productivity, and just providing a great experience for the developer. Milin, you all and Sentry have done a lot around this. You've had reports, you've done studies. Maybe share a little bit with us about what you've done for the satisfaction of developers, pushing it forward, measuring, and how you all do that at Sentry.
Yeah, so when we think about developers, it's super interesting that we are having this conversation. And if you kind of just look at kind of the path ahead of us, there will be more lines of code written over the next decade, either through humans or humans assisted by robots or whatever you want to call it, than ever before. And so increasingly, it is important that those developers, those builders, are productive. And to be productive, you need to be happy. And so what we've discovered is there's kind of three facets to this. One is kind of the most obvious, which is less meetings, more focused goals, that aspect of it. And that bucket is super important. There's a second bucket, which I would call is in the tooling side, which is when I am working or, am I able to get work done quickly or efficiently? And so when you talk about like developer tools, a lot of focus has to be around the developer experience around it. How they use it, is it really going to make them efficient and drive towards it? So at Sentry, as an example, when we tell you something's broken, we tell you down to the line of code which you need to fix, right? All of that is available to you at your fingertips. So you can resolve it, move ahead, right? So the idea of kind of making them productive to deliver that value, which is writing efficient code, writing high-quality code, building great software, if you can really hyper-focus on the tooling side with that, and then on the other side with less meetings, like a simple data point here, as you add more team members, we're finding that every 50 to 100 team members that are added, you reduce productivity by anywhere from 1 to 5 percentage points. So that's a lot if you think about scaling companies and driving along those lines. And so instead of focusing on like operations and keeping my lights on, I think organizations need to start thinking about productivity of developers, measuring it, and acting on it. And there are capabilities out there that focus on that, not measuring like how much time did they code, but measuring how effective are they happy, and are they delivering higher quality. So I think that's the future in front of us, and that's the opportunity in front of us.
Really, really interesting. Now, we made it 13 minutes without talking about AI, so we're going to shift over now. Bernadette, you all, you acquired a company, Search.io, really interesting company around vector databases, and that's one of the pillars for building a generative AI company. And you all did that before the hype and before things really took off. How did you all set up the company to take advantage of all the advancements in AI and a lot of the things that you all are doing to power the next generation of applications?
Yeah, I mean, we acquired the company at the beginning of September, and we've launched one product already, Algolia Neural Search, which combines keyword and vector or semantic search. And today, we've actually got our second developer conference in recent years, and we're launching our second product as well, which is a neural inference engine. But if I stand back and think about how do we set ourselves up for that success, it came down to three things. The people, obviously, it's an obvious one, but data scientists, and we increased the size of our product and engineering team by 135% in the last 18 months. Not 35, but 135%, and we still need more data scientists. So that was one. Data is the second one, and we all know that data is the fuel of AI. That's the obvious bit, but the subtlety or the nuance is that it's a different mindset when you're developing an AI product. And it's one of being data-driven, it's one of iteration, it's one of you've got to be prepared to fail, and that product or that model may not go forward. So it's a mindset change for your engineering team, and therefore injecting the data scientists really helps with that evolution. And I think the third element, which is vitally important, and not everybody puts enough focus on it, given where we are in the cycle with AI, but it's to do with scale. So for example, we wouldn't bring out an AI product until we could scale it. And by scaling it, we mean 5 nines of availability, and we're the only one in the search industry, in the private search engine market that does it, because 5 nines of availability means 78 seconds of downtime a quarter.
Wow.
and you've got to architect that in. And so I think a lot of the experimentation that's going on, like with vector databases right now, yes, we've got one. If you want one, get me afterwards. But we actually believe that there's a better way, and that is most of the companies, as we were talking backstage, that are experimenting with vector databases right now, it's because they can't do what they need to do with ChatGPT for security, privacy, compliance reasons. And as a consequence, therefore, they want to apply their LLMs to their own data and put a chat interface on it. Well, that's why they're picking up vector databases, but they won't scale. They're still a science project. And that's why we launched our neural inference engine today, because we take your data, we vectorize it, compress it, shoot it back to you, and do it at scale. And at the right cost point, which is also the other fly in the ointment.
Love that.
Data, people, and scaling.
Got it. That's great. Shensi, how about for you all? There's a new AI product launch every week, an announcement. How do you not get lost in the noise with everything that's going on?
I mean, it's super tempting to just be like, fuck it, we're going to be an AI company. Like, now we're going to get $1 billion valuation. It's super tempting to do that. But I think, especially as an earlier stage company, we only have so many people. And especially when you're evaluating your current roadmap against deciding to make some bets internally on new features or new launches, you really have to evaluate what the ROI and opportunity cost is. And so my co-founder and I, we always would get different ideas for what might be what might be helpful for branding or actually help our customers. But in the end, we always had to do the right thing by figuring out, what does the customer actually want? Is this just cool, or does the customer actually want this? And it's not always fun or easy making that decision, and it might seem boring not always doing AI things, right? But you have to do what's best for the company long term.
And how did you come to that decision from your customers? Because you all have launched AI, you all power the AI ecosystem with integrations, you launched your own AI product. Was that directly from customers, or was that a balance from that as well as what you and your co-founder decided?
To be honest, it was kind of on the long tail of the end. I feel like we were a little bit late there. AI companies getting built on us. That was kind of a surprise. We were just seeing a lot of SMB signups, a lot of demo requests, and we always see different use cases that we are very surprised by. And to be honest, we just really didn't expect it. In terms of us using AI, I think we just kept thinking of different ideas, and we were just like, okay, we can try to do this, but it doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel like it's actually going to work. And then finally, we came up with an idea for how our community can contribute integrations to Merge's platform. And that was really something that our customers really were excited by, because we're not always going to be able to add that Siberian HRIS or ATS system, right? But if our customer can help contribute that to Merge's platform and does 40% of the mappings for us, that helps us a lot too. And so that's where we really found that something resonated with the customer base. And it was cool. The day we launched, we got an amazing email from someone that was like, "This is really effing cool, Gil." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And that was when we knew it was really worth it.
So real quick, we have a couple seconds left, rapid fire. What's advice that you would have for a founder building for developers? Bernadette.
Experiment, experiment, experiment.
Love that. Milin.
Know what you're targeting. Is it 1,000 a person company? Is it a large enterprise? So, it's a different product, even if it's a developer product, depending on who you're targeting. So know your target audience in terms of size and scale.
Shensi.
Learn to sell. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thank you all.
Welcome to the Q&A.